So recently I've been trying to make a game, and as an amateur game dev, I realized something. Balancing is fucking hard. What might seem like an obvious change on the surface might be the worst decision a game dev can make, and changing the stat on something unbalanced isn't always going to solve the problem, even if it does. That's really boring. Oh wow, this underpowered weapon was buffed. Oh really? What did they buff? Oh, they increased the clip size by 2. Wow. Exhilarating, inspiring, mind-blowing, edge-of-the-seat, compelling, stimulating, sensational changes, my guy. Now I'm not saying you should never nudge the stats slightly, but when you rebalance something that's not good, generally you want to respark the interest of players so they will interact with it again. A slight nudge on the stats isn't very interesting, you know? But what if the developers decided to get a little bit creative, a little bit quirky? What if instead of balancing something that's bad, the game devs make it a feature? Let's talk about Risk Rain 2 is a roguelike third-person looter shooter made by Hopu Games with an emphasis on power. The difficulty of the game scales with runtime, and all the items you get have some sort of effects that buffs you and stacks infinitely. So most run just boils down to breaking the game before it breaks you. One-shot protection is a mechanic that prevents the player from dying to one hit if they have more than 90% health left. This mechanic is very important because one single mistake in a remotely long run and you'll end up like poor old Mrs. Baker from next door stepping on a comically placed banana peel. Got that? Great! Now we arrive at today's target for ridicule, I mean discussion. The personal shield generator. The shield gen is an item that gives the player a passive shield that is equal to 8% of that player's current max HP, and it has a 7-second delay before it starts to recharge after taking damage. Sounds good on paper, right? Free health? Well, actually, the shield counts towards the one-shot protection, meaning if you have more than one shield gen, and if you take more than 10% damage, it takes a whopping 7 seconds before your one-shot protection comes back. 7 seconds might not sound a lot, but being distracted for half a second is enough to get you killed. Since Risk Rain 2 is a roguelike, there will be good items and there will be bad items. There's no escaping that, that's the genre. But when every single item is supposed to give the player some sort of buff, the shield gen is actively hindering the player, to the point where most people would just get rid of it as soon as possible. Some might not even pick it up. So after hearing all of that, you would think that Hopu Games would at least try to buff the shield gen, so it is a little bit more desirable and not trash can food. Well, in the new content DLC, Survival of the Void, they added 41 new items, 2 new survivors, 5 new environment, 14 new enemy types, and so much rebalancing to already existing content that they forgot to write it down. Within so many changes, the shield gen got exactly 0 of that. Yep. The mega minds over at Hopu Games thought, this shit trash and it's gonna stay as trash.
Know your fucking place, trash!
Instead of balancing the item directly, they did something else. They added a new item. The Plasma Shrimp. What does this item do, you might ask? Every time you hit an enemy, you shoot out an extra missile towards the target that deals 40% damage. If that doesn't sound very impressive, the most sought after item in most run is the ATG missile launcher. Every time you hit an enemy, there's a 10% chance of shooting out a missile that deals 300% damage. Don't let the damage number fool you. The more missiles you shoot out, the more your on-hit items proc. And the more your on-hit items proc, the more the game plays itself. With an effect this powerful, what is the condition? Like, what's the catch? Well, you need to be shielded. One of the most powerful effects in the game is tied to one of the worst, and that's genius in multiple ways actually. On the player's side, picking up the shield gen is still not that great of an idea. It's still a horrible item. But now, when the player picks it up, they get more shield. And more shield means they get to take more damage before the Plasma Shrimp deactivate, giving them more of a chance to kill the things that are trying to kill them. But at the same time, they're risking getting one shot from anything. The shield gen was an item that gave the player a great risk with no reward, a detriment to anyone that goes remotely long. Now, the shield gen gives the player a great risk with the promises of turning them into a deity, which, is a pretty good deal. So that's pretty good for the players. But what about the developers? Well, on the developer side, why spend time thinking of a way to balance something when you can just call it a feature? But seriously though, with team size as small as Hopus, time is tight, so using the time to create a new item instead of balancing an old one is, honestly, not a bad idea. You fixed, with massive air quotes, a problem and added a new item at the same time, achieving maximum time efficiency. And that's pretty creative, I guess. Hey, thanks for watching to the end. This video took way longer than it needed to be. I would really appreciate it if you would just hit that red button. Just do it. It's not a suggestion. Please? Thanks, bye.